The landscapes of our lives are for learning, where experience is our teacher. When we gather together to share our resources, we are destined to love and thrive. Good morning, Pierre.
Hey, good morning, Maureen.
Oh, when much more subdued.
Oh, I don't know. I've got my deep movie star voice. I love it doing these early morning podcasts. We should never podcast at 3 o'clock because they'll think I'm another person.
Yeah, right. Me too. I'll be half asleep at 3 p.m. So you wanted to talk
Does your
about,
body regulate down at about 3 o'clock?
yeah, lower energy. I'm definitely amped up in the morning and get my coffee, and then I do a lot of work. And then yeah, 4 or 5
Hey
o'clock,
guys.
I'm junk.
Yeah, hey guys, this is to all our listeners, Maureen. Big disclosure. Big disclosure. Maureen got herself an espresso machine.
It's awesome. It's awesome, and I'm trying really hard to discipline myself to just have one cup every day.
They're fantastic. I mean, I've been an espresso person since
Forever.
forever. Since I went to college, I went with a little tiny espresso maker to college of a CDO, I think it's called.
As Pierre's talking, he's plugging in his computer, and
I
I
am.
don't know what the
So,
hell he's doing.
yeah.
All right. You wanted to
All
talk
right.
about something. It's a podcast after all. What do you
It
want
is a
what
podcast,
do you
right?
want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about learning conversation, and I'm constantly telling Maureen how much I enjoy our conversations. And I don't know if anybody listening to this is going to agree with it or not, but um the the exchange and the dialogue that we're doing and exhibiting for me is so uplifting and holding space for the other person and listening. There's two parts of conversation. There's talking and there's listening. And then we were talking a little bit about the theme of this, which is mind, body, spiritual health, and being able to regulate around your emotions in a conversation where you don't just steamroll over another person and just beat them over the head, and you have curiosity. And I think that these conversations do that pretty well, and I kind of like it. But we were talking about it in a bigger context, like how, what was the phrase you used? Negotiating social meaning or something like that?
The negotiation of meaning with other people,
Yeah,
through dialogue. And so it's not just, and it is an exchange of ideas and thoughts that your people are thinking, beliefs, ideas, opinions, conclusions, assumptions, hypotheses, theories, exchanging interpretation of perceptions of things you're seeing or you're experiencing, sharing that with other people through language in an embodied way, like in your body with the person in the room. And
right.
If you're looking at the same thing, you're talking about the same topic or image or whatever, it's, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And if not, like, tell me how you're seeing things, and tell me what you're thinking, and how did you draw that conclusion? And
That's really
listening and asking questions, and not just trying to be right and overpower the other person. I was going to
right.
add to what you said earlier, just a minute ago, about the emotional piece. And because I'm always have that psychotherapeutic lens and framing in my back of my head, several people, people come to therapy because, they're one of their biggest complaints is problems in relationships and
Right.
communication. Like, that's part of the treatment plan is like, how do I communicate? I'm really struggling to communicate when I'm having strong emotions. Like, I can't talk to my partner. I can't talk to my friends or my parents because I just can't get it together mentally when
Yeah,
I'm feeling strong emotions. And
yeah,
and so that's always something that we're working on too, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, I come from an Italian background where, speaking is emotion. I mean, it's crazy. And I think in growing up, I had to distance myself from that. I mean, the Italian conversation can be so passionate. The good news about it, at least as I experienced it through that sort of culture lens, is that, you know, after the espresso or whatever, the next day, it's just not like carried around as baggage. It's just part of like the expression piece. So
Mm.
even though I had to regulate around the intensity of that, it wasn't something that, you know, you went on a crusade on. It was just something that I think
Yeah.
there's a great line, I forget who had it, but, you know, beliefs passionately argued but lightly held or something
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, like that.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we're talking about. It takes a lot of self-awareness and understanding how humans function with that,
Right.
and how to manage the emotions and the strong sensations and feelings while exchanging ideas.
I think the piece that and this was part of the podcast thing and that we were going to talk about is, having some aspect of humility so that you're willing to listen and that you're open to other ideas without it just wrecking your world. And
Why do you think people lack humility in that respect? I'm sure you've had interactions or observed them with people communicating with no sense. What do you think fuels
well,
that
that would be me.
lack
I
of
mean,
humility
I
and that
don't have
wanting
to,
to be right? What do you think fuels that?
I'm thinking about it because, you said I observed people, but I mean, I certainly observed myself. Um, that's a deep question, Marie.
It's fear.
Um,
The answer is fear.
the answer is fear.
If you go all the way down to the roots of it, it's some sort of defense or anxiety, or because it
I'm going to
why
give a little.
why why do people
I'm going to give a
defend
little different.
themselves? You're defending your idea, you're defending your opinion, you're defending what you think, like, and the stronger you do that, right, what else could be fueling it? There's probably
Well,
another answer.
I'm going to give you another answer,
Yeah.
and um, it's it's wanting it's wanting and needing to
Mhm.
be heard and seen. And there might be fear somewhere down at the bottom there, but it's this insistence that that I'm I'm here, or it's maybe, you know covering up a hurt or something like that. I know I was most intense about, my opinions when I was trying to be to formulate myself. And it's so interesting that, you taught school at the high school level, a
What do you
senior
mean
high school.
formulate yourself? When you were trying to define who you were?
Well, you grow up and you try and figure out who you are, and you start to have opinions. Um, and being in the Italian culture, you're not shy about expressing them, or at least I wasn't. And so I'm going to just take it from, like, as an 8-year-old, I wasn't spouting out ideas about the world. I was
Right.
just a little person kind of
Games.
bopping around, but by about 14, maybe 13, I started to have some ideas. And then, by 18, I was pretty passionate about them and I left school, to kind of go out on a little crusade. And I was, community organizer for a political campaign and stuff like that, back before I even before there was a word community organizer. And I worked on the McGovern campaign. But yeah. And so
you're saying what
and that
motivates
carries
you is
over
not
into and
fear.
that carried over into my 20s a fair amount, where I still, now I know I'm right because I've had these opinions and I've had a chance to be around a little bit, and I'm now 21 years old and I'm an adult. So like, yeah, let's get these opinions going. And then, it did take a little while.
To feel part of the group, like that's what adults do. You have opinions, you get accepted by a certain group because you don't want to be alone, right? Like what it's a social thing. It's a social thing to come in. Like you looked around your environment and started to form opinions of what you were observing and what you became engaged with. And so part of that could be
I'm going to go really
in,
deep and I'm going to go really deep and personal. And I think that, as a little kid, maybe I was not as heard as I wanted to be, or as seen as I wanted to be, or as loved as I wanted to be in the way that I needed to be loved.
Mhm.
And then, I sort of like, you know,
Had a voice and wanted to be heard. And
exactly,
yeah.
exactly, pretty
Oh,
much it.
so again,
Well, I'm not sure that's fear.
this is why we're friends. That I told you the other reasons, our gameplay and our love of movement and sports, but like, yeah, I mean, I think that's a generic, it's, you said personal, but like, I think generically that's the experience. Children are what it like
Right.
often
So
little and unseen and, in many families and,
right. And so that's why I was kind of like going to a little different place than fear. I think it's kind of part of the human condition, depending on how, you're kind of raised and how the little dice get rolled around things. And it's sort of natural to do some of these things. Um,
adaptation. So you adapted to your environment, like so you're adapting and fulfilling a need that wasn't met. It's like, okay, like I wasn't seen or heard as much as I needed. So like I need to get that need met.
Yeah, so
And
I'm gonna have an opinion, and I'm going to be, I just never was a wallflower.
yeah.
So,
Right. So
yeah,
part of that's personality. Yeah. And just how you grew up, right? In your environment, how it shaped you. Yeah.
yeah, but I think, more common theme about conversation and learning is when, through all of that, it took a little bit of learning to have the other side of the coin developed, which was, a pretty good listener, but, to have a little deeper level of humility allows for better listening. And that was
When
something
did
that
you learn that? When did you learn the humility? Did you
uh,
always have it, or
um,
when you were proven wrong a bunch? Because usually pain that helps. Is just like, oh, maybe I didn't know as much as I think I know, and I'll be a little humbled and listen more. Like I think that's how I learned.
okay, I think I learned it yesterday.
Yeah. Well, or keep learning it, right?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Well,
It's again part of the human. I think it's part of the human kind of trajectory of, you know, getting smarter by understanding that you know less.
right. And that I think part of the feeling small in the world and like, oh my God, there's how many people on the planet, and I'm just one, and when you have those kind of realizations, and then you're like, okay, like I'm not insignificant, but I'm not as important as I thought I was. Or
Well,
and so
I'm
that's
gonna,
my
I'm
idea,
gonna,
you know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah, I'm gonna kind of like move towards like the downslope of this conversation, but I recently completed a memory book for the children, which they gave me as an app. It's called Storyworth, and actually I can recommend it. It's kind of cool. It's they send you a question online each week, and they're kind of mundane questions, but I left the questions, you can change them. They're questions like, starts off like, what did you look like as a child? And what did you think,
Did your kids ask those questions of you?
no, they're just
They're just
bot
generic?
generated. They're
Oh.
bot generated from Storyworth.
Oh, I thought
And
your kids could ask those questions
no,
of you. Okay.
no. And you have the ability to change the question, which I understand now from speaking to people who have used the app. They all don't answer the questions because they're so dumb. But I'm so dumb, I answered the questions.
Of course you did.
It's like, what did you look like when you were a child? What did you think of your mother when you were younger? What were your grandparents like? And I just thought that, they came in over the transom, on a Monday, and I would sit down and just write down a few thoughts. But back to being insignificant and everything like that, I had like an inferiority complex because I was so small, uh, looking at some of the pictures and seeing myself, I realized, oh my God, I was like a miniature human being, because my growth spurt. I was talking about this last night at dinner. Gentleman, brother, like, had a growth spurt, like the gentleman, I don't know his brother, but he's 6'3", but he didn't reach that till like late high school years. And I know that I had a growth spurt like when I was 19, like a freshman in college or something
Yeah.
like that. I
Yeah.
was absolutely
Late
miniature.
bloomer.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Late bloomer.
Late bloomer, yeah. And plus the I have a year-end birthday, and back then there was no like September cutoff or something like that.
Right,
It was the
right. Yeah. So
calendar
you were young
year.
for your grade too. Yeah.
Young for my grade, really small. I tell the story that my sister went to college, and when her weight dropped to 87, my mom went up to, go like feed her Italian food. Like, we were all miniature. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're just a small stature. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a big person either. My
Right.
boys, same. They grew later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, we were talking about humility and people clinging to their ideas, and the identification of yourself with your thoughts and your opinions and your beliefs, and how it's less likely to want to open up to hear alternate ideas about your ideas, when you know what I mean, when there's strong emotion attached, or your identity is
Right.
attached to those
Well,
ideas. I think that's like separating the person from their behavior. Like, that's a like rule of thumb. It's just like, okay, like look at the person,
definitely.
look at their behaviors. We're trying to discipline behaviors. We're trying to teach
It's
people.
it's
It's
so
not the person, but it's same with ideas. Like, it's not the person, it's the ideas they hold. You're disagreeing with ideas, or you're agreeing with, or whatever. It's an
right,
exchange of ideas. It's
right.
not
And
personal.
and as we were saying, ideas come and go. Not only in your mind and but if you look at the arc of history, I mean, people have lived under so many different rubrics of ideas of what's
Yeah.
right and wrong.
And there's
So,
been some really good ones, and there's been some really bad ones. And then
really,
sometimes the bad ones turn out to be good in the larger arc of history. And like, we forget we're in context. Like, you think about medicine, and like, oh, what we knew 10 years ago was like, okay, like, oh, this is the truth.
that's a
And then
freaky.
it's in a big arc of 20 years from now, will that still be true? It's a process that's always evolving, and we forget that yeah, you can relatively be close to the
Yeah,
truth, and then
medicine.
there's enduring truths that have been true since the beginning, so those are probably pretty true.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean,
Boy,
that's the wisdom.
so part of this was to be talking about conversation, and one of the interesting things about conversation is how it wanders all over the place. and allowing it to do so is, you know, part of the joy
Yeah.
and being open. So
Tangents.
um how about like that? I don't know if this was even a good podcast, but
Well, I just think we strayed away a bit there, but
yeah.
I was intrigued by wanting to talk about like listening and how hard that is to do and how regulated we need to be to do it. And it's a practice, but I'll maybe we can end here and say we're going to jump into another podcast about a book by John Francis called The Ragged Edge of Silence. It's all about listening.
Oh,
Maybe we
I
can do
like that.
that next time.
That sounds great. That
Yeah.
sounds great. Well, thanks for indulging in one of these meandering conversations. And I'm Pierre from Yoga Heals.
Now, Maureen from Landscapes for Learning. Learn to live to learn.
Peace through grace, my friends. Peace through grace.